My name is Renard Turner. I'm here to talk about small farm marketing experiences and lessons from the field. My wife and I own Vanguard Ranch Limited, which is a 94-acre farm in Louisa County, Virginia. I have a Gordonsville mailing address. I'm retired from UVA after 25 years in the medical field, but my passion has always been agriculture. I was a member of Future Farmers of America in high school back in California, and I've continued my love for agriculture. What I'm going to talk about is niche marketing and what I had to do in order to earn an income from my farm. Now, economy of scale is very important to all small producers. I essentially have myself, my wife, and one other person who works with me part-time, full-time, depending on the seasons. If you go to the next slide there, what we do is direct marketing. I raise commercial meat goods. Now, for those of you who don't know, goat meat is the most widely eaten meat on the planet Earth. Because I am into organic and sustainables, goats have the smallest carbon footprint of any livestock species that we have. Arguably, there could be some more if you want to consider things like escargot or rabbit, so forth and so on. But of the four-footed hoof stock, they have the smallest carbon footprint. And that's important as we want to work towards a cleaner planet. I also grow organic produce and herbs. I have a high tunnel and a solar greenhouse that I built. That's really an adjunct to having the commercial meat goats because I compost their manure, add a little lime, liquid seaweed, and use fertilizer injectors and drip tape to grow delicious food. Now, the reason I grow the food is because, number one, I like to eat well, and I don't want any GMO, and I don't want any garbage in my diet, so that's important to my wife and I. It's also a statement about who we are. Also because we have the goats and we believe in recycling. So they give us that wonderful manure product, and it just so happens that we don't have to go out and buy a lot of others additives to make really good food products. So what I decided to do, and really by accident, I was at the state fair and I wanted lemonade a couple of years ago in Richmond. And it was getting late in the day, and I went to one vendor. He didn't have any lemonade, but he told me to go 2 concession units down. He was going to call his cousin, and he would have a lemonade ready for me. So his cousin had one of those big lemon things, you know, when you squeeze the lemons, and that was his concession. And so he calls him, and I walk down there, and I said, hey, you know, the guy up there sent me down here to get a lemonade. And he says, yeah, that's my cousin. And I said, well, how many of you are out here doing this? He says, well, that's my cousin, and that's my son. And he pointed out all these other concession units there. So this family had a small enterprise where they all got concession units when they graduated from high school, like 18 or 20. And so somebody did pizza, somebody did turkey legs, somebody did popcorn, somebody did hot dogs, somebody did lemonade. But I asked the guy, I said, well, how lucrative is this? And he tells me that he did $77,000 in 11 days and on an average. And I said, you're kidding me. And he said, no. And I said, okay. So I told my wife, I said, you know, matter of fact, I couldn't go to sleep that night. I went home and I hit the computer and I started looking up concession trailers. Long story short, that led me to purchasing my own and starting to do what I did. Now, mind you, this is a tremendous leap of faith because there's no precedent for this, and no one in the state of Virginia had ever done this before we did it. And people thought I was stark raving crazy, but it's not the first time I've been called that, so it didn't bother me a bit. You have to be an innovator, and to be what I call an agripreneur, an entrepreneur in agriculture, you've got to think outside the box. You can't do what everybody else does. Forget about it. If you're doing what everybody else does, you're going to be in that same queue waiting to get paid like everybody else does. I didn't want to do that. This is a picture of us from Heritage Harvest Food Festival up at Monticello, which we do every year. We support them, they support us. We always sell out. I think that what I want to talk about is direct marketing. Look at the people standing in line. That's as direct as it gets. I retain my product. I don't have to sell for slaughter market prices. I serve it to my customers as a ready-to-eat goat burger, goat kebab, or curry goat. Those are the 3 things that I traditionally do. I might branch out to fajitas or something else, depends. But I'm then able to retain my profit at a much greater level than I would if I was to sell it as a raw meat product. So I definitely believe in value added, and I definitely believe in ready to eat. If you can take your product to that next level, whatever it is that you produce, if you can take it to a ready to eat stage, you will allow yourself to have a greater return on your investment in time and labor. You can go to the next slide. Okay, this is another happy customer buying goat. This one was out at the Vintage Virginia Apple Harvest. How many of you have been to that? That's really nice. That's a great festival for me as a vendor. Half an hour from the farm, reasonable interest fees. The demographics are great. The people who come there already want to eat something local and something good. No problem selling products. This lady came up and she said, "Oh my God, I've never tried goat, but I've always wanted to." And I said, "This is your lucky day." And as you see, she's reaching into her pocketbook to give me some money. So that's always a good sign. Next up. Okay, this is a line for goat meat. Direct marketing. So how do we do this? I cannot really afford to put a big ad in the paper, and it wouldn't work. Because, I'm selling mine as a point of sale, ready to eat. It's not something that I'm really trying to freeze and for you to heat up later. Although there is a component of my operation that's working towards that retail side of it, and I have done some with local restaurants, and I will continue to do some in the future. That's a different aspect of what I do. I really love the food festivals because you're getting the people right there, the point of sale, their interest is great, your profit margins are better, and you're able to name your own price, which is very important if you're going to be successful. So again, look at this people that people always say, and I want you to look at the picture carefully. They always say that the people who eat goat meat come from certain ethnicities. What ethnicity do you see in that line? What would you call them?
All of the above.
This is one of the biggest misnomers, and I mean, I've served on national goat organizations, board of directors, and I've done goat meat conventions around this country for years. And all of the experts say, well, it's an ethnic market. Complete crap. It's not. It's anybody with teeth who eats meat who wants to try it. That's who eats goat. You can see that right there. They line up and they buy it year after year. Next slide. This is my wife who couldn't be here today because she does have the off-farm job for insurance, but I hope this is her last year and she'll retire. She looks really short compared to him. He's tall. But she's not a midget. Well, she's just 5'1". But anyway, we're delivering to a local restaurant who purchased our product for a number of months as a trial, which was really good. And this is my first time of getting out into the local market. They were selling my goat burgers for $16.95.
I've had it.
Did you like it?
Oh, it's awesome.
You see that? Unsolicited testimony. Okay? Tell them they need to put it back on there because they got cheap. Because I don't undersell myself. I mean, that's another thing. I learned from my baby brother who's a hard businessman, you set your price. It's like playing poker. If you're going to blink, don't go in there. You set your price, you mean it the first time you say it, and if they say, "I'm sorry, I can't afford that," you say, "Well, I tell you what, I've got another meeting to go to, and here's my card, and you call me when you're ready." And you walk. Because you have to own your product, and you have to know the value. If you don't believe it yourself, forget anybody else buying it. They're not going to. So they did a really booming business there. Now, I'm going to tell you that what I learned from this was that I was selling too cheap. So I don't do that way anymore. I'll sell it, but I'm going to double the price that I was selling it because I wanted to get my foot in the door. And when they got up to where they were doing, $500 in orders at a time, every week or every 2 weeks, I was pretty happy with that. So I cut them a break, but I gave them a break for like a 6-month period. And then after that, I had to keep my word because that was an introductory offer. And if I continued at that, we had already done the test marketing. I already knew it sold. Then they either had to step up or step out. Okay, next slide. This is my green built production facility. I built this. This is next to my house on my farm. Designed and built it. I'm into green architecture and all of that stuff. So one half of the building is 24 by 30. And let's see, if I'm looking at it this way, the part to my right is what's called the wet side. So that's where the raw meat will come in. It's I'm still working on it inside some, but that's where the walk-in freezers are going to go for the raw goat meat product. And that's where my stainless steel tables are and my drain in the floor. And it's got all that high density polypropylene plastic white stuff on the walls that you have to have in a restaurant kitchen. So it's basically that in stainless steel. It's plumbed, it's got electricity, and it's been approved, so I'm good to go. And I finally got my retail exemption, so now I can use that, package my product, which I have a vacuum packer, and I can sell it to any restaurant in the state of Virginia and be totally legal. That means I can take it from my mobile unit to this next stage. I could do that before in small batches, but now I can do it in a larger scale, which is great. So I built this myself from the ground up, from the ground up, literally. Not a whole lot of fun, but it works. The other side is the side that would be the commercial kitchen, where we actually can do the cooking and the vacuum packing and have the cooling racks. And also the front part of it is I have now framed it off inside for a retail store, which I have to have in order to get my retail exemption. So that'll be finished by next month. And I'll have a display case there and people will be able to come on farm. And yeah, I saw a hand going up.
So that's a USDA?
Yes, yes. And that was well, you probably know something about this, but I tell you, it took me 4 years because the county, a lot of it has to do with interpretation and who's reading the regs. You really have to know your inspectors, and I mean know them and get to know them well, because they can stop you or they can help you. In my early days, I had a number of issues where people did not want to help me for a number of reasons. Some of them because they're ignorant, some because they just didn't want to see me do it. Louisa County has progressed, and now I'm able to do more than I ever was there before. But they were not very user-friendly in my early days at all. They were the exact opposite. However, once the county signs off, then the USDA people can sign off. But until your county signs off, you can get nowhere. That held me up for 4 years. Now I have a very good relationship with Meat and Poultry Inspector, Mr. Jones. If you don't know who he is, if you're doing meat and poultry, you need to know him, because he's the man who can give you the green light to go forward. They're very easy to work with. They will sit down with you. They came to my house. We sit down there. We went over the rules and regulations, and they'll go through it step by step and explain to you exactly what you need to do so you don't have any infractions. They are your friends, and we need to use them wisely, because, trust me, it's a whole lot easier than doing it wrong. You don't want that knock on your door. That's not a friendly knock, like, how you doing, and we just here to check, when they're telling you you've done something wrong. Any questions so far? So, okay, go ahead.
We've got time for 3 questions.
Okay, go for it.
So you're doing all the processing of the goat yourself? You're doing
No,
slaughter?
let me clarify. I do not do slaughter. That's a whole other ball game, and I'm not even going to get into that because there's too many rules and regulations, and it costs a lot to set up that facility. I use T&E Meats in Harrisonburg, Virginia, the Joel Salatin and Joe Cloud. They're pretty much well known in the industry. My labels are there. They have to stay there. That's a USDA requirement. They do my packaging. My product comes from them ready to go. I just can break it down and further process it and cook it, so forth and so on. Somebody over here? Yes, sir.
What breeds of goat are best for you?
Well now, I'll try to be politically correct. I used to be the National Secretary of the American Kiko Goat Association and on their board of directors. I started out using Kiko and Spanish Cross does and Kiko bucks. I have changed, and I can tell you why later if you want to know. I now use myotonics exclusively. It is an American land-raised breed, much better adapted to this country. Your price point of getting into that goat is better. They have a higher meat-to-bone ratio, 4-to-1 versus 3-to-1 on any of the other breeds. Excellent maternals, natural parasite resistance, very high forage conversion ratios. They're smaller, they don't challenge your fences, and my wife likes them. So, there it is. Yes, ma'am.
So you describe that as being a place where you're going to package it.
Mhm.
It's already packaged in TV.
Mhm.
You're repackaging it there? Or
No, I can do 2 things. I can bring it back from them, say ground in a pound or 5 pounds already, and I can sell that right through my retail. That's going to be the retail part of what I do, direct from them, direct to the customer that way.
you bring back half a carcass or
No,
carcass?
I'm not doing that. Now, could I? Yes, I could, as long as I went through the prerequisite stuff to set up to do that, which means buying the bandsaw and a bigger vacuum pack. I'm not going to do that. I'm getting mine in 1 to 5 pound packages because I'm now producing it into my goat burgers or goat kebabs, and that's fine and easy. I like that. I control production, and since I'm not wanting to do more than like 50 pounds of curry at a time for quality control, it works better for me that way.
Still cuts into your profit because it's expensive to get processed and packaged.
Yeah, absolutely. But you have to just roll it over, and that's where the value-added ready-to-eat comes in. If I will only sell 20% of my product through the retail store, the 80% is going to be value-added for that very reason. Any other questions?
One more question?
Okay, thank you. You can see me
Great,
afterwards.
thanks so much.